Hi, this is the 20th New York State Militia at Gettysburg on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and we're back again on McPherson's Ridge with the Harmon Farm now ablaze on fire, and it's over here in this direction. The smoke would have been rising as a large cloud of smoke now covers the battlefield. With the Harmon Farm ablaze and Pettigrew's men trudging forward, they're now crossing Willoughby's Run and then up the slopes of McPherson's Ridge, of which we're standing now. The 20th New York State Militia color bearer, Sergeant Edward Beckett, ordered the flag 5 paces to the front. So probably about right here, he orders the colors of their flag to the front. The brass eagle that sat atop of that flag was shot off, and Beckett himself was hit in the left hand. The staff was hit also, and splinters or slivers of the wood went into Beckett's chest. In the direct front of the 20th New York State Militia was the 42nd North Carolina. The 52nd North Carolina was to the 20th's left. They had just set the farm on fire, and they're advancing here by the John Herbst farm, and they would come into contact with the 20th's left, and as well as the 120th New York, which they would slam into there. So this is the Confederate charge coming up the slopes of McPherson's Ridge on the afternoon of July 1st, 1863, and we'll pick it up again in our next part. Advancing, after 4 shots fired, Color Corporal Enos Vale found himself, while loading his 5th round, fall to the ground in great pain. He fled to the rear toward the Chambersburg Pike. So he's fleeing this direction now toward the Chambersburg Pike. And he would be aided by a Union cavalryman and then taken to Christ Lutheran Church. Private Hugh Donahue and Private Reuben Van Leuven were friends before the war, and they fought side by side in Company D. And as they stood here on the ridge during the action, just a moment later, Van Leuven was struck, and the wound was mortal. It was a mortal gaping wound. Within a few minutes, Private Reuben Van Leuven was dead. In a tribute to his friend, Private Hugh Donahue threw down his musket onto the ground and picked up Leuven's and continued the fighting with it. First Sergeant of Company B, Isaac Boswell, took 5 bullets in his haversack, 1 through his cartridge box, and his rifle was even struck by shell fragments. Private Lambert Du Bois of Company C witnessed John Boyle struck right in the temple and be killed instantly. These were some of the things that were going on right here where we stand as Pettigrew's brigade advanced past the Harmon Farm, across Willoughby Run, and here onto McPherson's Ridge. Day 1 was no joke. Day 1 was some heavy fighting, and often is overlooked as to Day 2 and Day 3 of the Battle of Gettysburg. And I'm here today along with the assistance of a good friend, author Seward Osborne, to talk about this brave regiment of New York soldiers and their often overlooked and misunderstood actions here at Gettysburg. And we're going to do a break from the fighting to talk a little bit about the New York State Militia in an upcoming video. This has been the 20th New York State Militia at Gettysburg on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Hi, this is Frank from Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and I'm here standing in front of the 20th New York State Militia Monument of Day 1 on the Gettysburg Battlefield on McPherson's Ridge. And I want to talk a few minutes about the 20th New York State Militia, and so far what we've discussed as we've started in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and made the march here. But more specifically, I want to talk about the 2 companies, Company K and Company G, that went to the Emanuel Harmon Farm. And I know this can be controversial when you do this, and it's also one of those would have, should have situations. But when talking about the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st and 2nd of 1863, very often you hear about the the men at the wall, the Union men at the wall, and how they saved the Battle of Gettysburg during the epic Pickett's Charge. And then if you want to rewind a day, you can go back to July 2nd with Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, Colonel Chamberlain in the 20th Maine, on the Union left at Little Round Top. And often he's called the savior of the battle, the savior of Round Top. And some historians will even debate that and go as far to say, but what about what happened on the other end of the line at the Fishhook on Culp's Hill with David Ireland or the 66 Ohio? They had the similar tactics with a bayonet charge down a hill, except Ireland himself was killed, didn't have an opportunity for later glory in the Civil War or to do an after-action report, so it's often overlooked. But what I want to talk about is what we just got done discussing at the Emanuel Harmon Farm. 2 companies of 70 men, both companies, hold the Confederates at bay for over an hour, just over an hour there at the Emanuel Harmon Farm. And it is my belief, as well as Seward Osborne, who wrote the book that we discussed about, that those 70 men are more of the savior of the Battle of Gettysburg than any other action. Let me explain why I feel that way. You have 70 men holding back this Confederate attack on day 1. And they stalemate them over there for over an hour. Between fighting with the enemy skirmishers and then how long it took to actually set the Harmon House ablaze, these Confederate troops of Pettigrew's brigade, Heath's division, were held back for an hour. Now, at the end of day 1, General Lee, near the end, General Lee tells Ewell, take that hill, meaning Cemetery Hill. And by then it was getting dark. The Union escaped through the town that ended up on East Cemetery Hill. These men barely getting back there are now digging trenches. And quite frankly, the Confederate troops are tired. Let's suppose just for a moment that you give those Confederate troops 1 hour extra of daylight, 1 extra hour of energy of not being as tired. And the Union retreat of the 1st and 11th Corps, which just made it out there, by the way, all without being totally destroyed, take an hour away from them, and maybe they don't even get to Cemetery Hill. Maybe there isn't a day 2 with Chamberlain, Ireland, and maybe there isn't a day 3 with Pickett's Charge. It could have ended on day 1 right here on McPherson's Ridge. And if that happens, let's suppose that the Battle of Gettysburg only goes to day 1. That means the Confederates win the Battle of Gettysburg. That means that the Civil War most likely is over. It also means that Lincoln probably doesn't win re-election and is forced to negotiate a peace with the Confederate States of America. And our country would be different. We wouldn't have a second term of President Abraham Lincoln as our 16th president. So I think these 70 men of the 20th New York State Militia of companies G and K deserve a lot more credit than what they get in history. And it is a very interesting scenario to say that 70 men may not have only saved the Battle of Gettysburg, but they may have saved the Civil War, and they may have saved the presidency of President Abraham Lincoln. I do thank you guys for watching this very interesting video series. I want to thank Seward Osborne, who has been hammering me with information and photographs and making all this possible. This has been one of the best and most fun series I have done, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, tune in for more stuff coming this year and in the following years to come on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, Gettysburg Battlefield 2, and Gettysburg Battlefield 3. Thanks for watching.